Hey Rams, here is today's lesson. It is over solving two-step equations, okay? So before we begin, make for sure that you have answered your warm-up questions, okay? These will be set up for you to solve them, and if you've not done that, be sure to go back and do those right now, okay? So remember the rules for integer operations, okay? So on these rules, negative plus a negative, that's like bad guys and more bad guys. I just combine the numbers. This is number 1. 19 plus 6 would be 25, and they're all negative. When the signs are the same, you ignore the signs and keep them, okay? Now, number 2, we never ever subtract integers. We add the opposite of the second number. So it's 5 plus negative 32. 5 positives, 32 negatives. So what I do when I'm going through that is I ignore the signs and I subtract them. 32 minus 5 is going to be 27. But which one is bigger? Like the greater absolute value, right? If you're ignoring the signs, is 32 or 5 bigger? 32 is, and it's negative, so my answer is negative. Okay, 14 plus negative 27. Same thing, I'm adding with opposite signs, so I ignore the signs and I subtract. 27 minus 14 would be 13, and there are more negatives than positives, so it's negative. Okay, negative 11 minus 8 becomes negative 11 plus negative 8. We never subtract, we add using the opposite of the second number. Okay, so 11 negatives plus 8 negatives would be 19 negatives. All right, just remember, going back to those rules for integer operations. Negative 8, number 5 here, negative 8 times negative 9, we'll have a 72, but negative times a negative is positive. Remember that rule that we learned, the triangle trick here? Remember that? So I cover up the two that I have. I have a negative 8 and a negative 9. So I'm going to cover up both of those, and all I have left is positive, so my answer is positive. Okay? I'm going to delete those. There we go. Now, negative 14 times positive 3 would be, I have a 42, but is it positive or negative? If I go up here and I cover up a negative and a positive, what am I left with? A negative. So my answer is negative. Okay, 24 divided by 4 would be 6, and it's a negative divided by a positive. So negative and positive, my answer is going to be negative. 35, negative 35 divided by negative 7. Well, 35 divided by 7 is going to be 5, but it's a negative divided by a negative, which tells me it's positive. Okay, that was your warm-up. All right, next, we're going to move right along here to, this is what your notes page looks like. So if you have a way to print this at home, you may go ahead and do it. Otherwise, you are writing all this down in your notes, and you're going to be submitting a picture of your notes, okay? Make for sure you're writing. Okay, so first step. Now these are the pieces, it's just bits and pieces of your notes page together, okay? So first step in adding or your two-step equations is undo the addition or subtraction with the inverse operation. I'm going to change my ink here, okay? The inverse operation. Remember, inverse is a fancy mathematical word meaning opposite. Okay, and I'm going to put opposite over here for you. That may help us remember it. Okay, we get rid of the addition and subtraction first. We're going the opposite order of operations, okay? Now, we're going to undo the multiplication or division with the inverse operation as well. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to get rid of our addition and subtraction first, and then multiplication and division. We're going to isolate the variable. That is always our goal. We want to get the letter all by itself away from everything else. And then we're going to check your solution by substitution, okay? All right, we check the solution by substituting, and I'll show you what that means, okay? We're going to do those examples, all right? So we're going to jump over here to our first practice problem, okay? That says 10 plus 3k equals 22. So the first thing was to get rid of the adding and subtracting. Get rid of the constants, the ones that are just the numbers, okay? So if this is a 10, what is happening to my 3K? I'm adding 10 to it, so the opposite of that, the inverse of adding 10 is subtracting 10. Subtracting 10. So I draw my line here. It looks a lot like last year, except last year we had one-step equations. We either had adding or subtracting or multiplying or dividing. Now we can have 2 steps, okay? 10 minus 10, they go away. 22 minus 10 would be 12. Now I'm left with 3K equals 12. Okay, so we got rid of the adding or subtracting. The next step was to get rid of to undo the multiplying or dividing by doing its inverse. Well, now what have I done to K? I have multiplied by 3. So the opposite of multiplying by 3 is dividing by 3. And whatever I do to one side of the equal sign, I have to do to the other. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. So I'm left with just a 1K, which is the same thing as K. And then 12 divided by 3 is 4. K equals 4. Now we substitute, okay? I'm going to change color of ink so that we can tell exactly what I'm doing, okay? So I'm going to say 10 plus 3K equals 22. I'm going to substitute 4 in there for K, okay? 10 plus 3 times 4 is 22. Now we go back and use our order of operations. 3 times 4 is 12. 10 plus 12 equals 22. Is that a true statement? Yes, that means my answer is true. That is a solution. Okay. Now, you can sometimes see the problems where your variable is on the right side of the equal sign, instead of the left. Sometimes your variable is over here instead of over here, and that's okay. All right? So we're going to do the same thing. I can still isolate my variable even if it's on the right side of the equation, okay? So I'm just going to get rid of the adding and subtracting first. So what's happening to my 4p? I'm subtracting 5. So the opposite of subtracting 5 is adding 5. So add 5 over here. But whatever I do to the one side of the equal sign, I have to do to the other. Okay, remember those 0 pairs we did yesterday? Our goal was to isolate the variable by creating those 0 pairs, which is great, but it doesn't matter if I have 0 pairs over here, all right? As long as I get them here. Those go away. They're left with just 0. So it's 4p equals, and then 19 plus 5 is 24. Okay, so now I'm left with 4 times something is 24. Well, what did I do to my variable? I multiplied by 4. And the opposite of multiplying by 4 is dividing by 4. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. I'm left with 1p, which still looks like p, equals, and 24 divided by 4 is 6. P equals 6. So now I'm going to change colors here, and we're going to substitute that in and solve it, okay? 19 equals 4 times 6 minus 5. Now we go back to our order of operations, and we're going to solve it and see if we get it correct, okay? 4 times 6 is 24 minus 5. Is that 19? Yes. This is a true statement right there, okay? That's what it looks like when you check your work. All right, now this one here, we have a number divided by 2 minus 8 equals 16. So this has subtraction and division. So I'm going to undo the opposite of order of operations. So now we're going to undo the adding and subtracting first, okay? So this one I have subtracted 8, so I'm going to add 8 to both sides. We keep our work nice and organized, okay? Negative 8 plus 8 is 0. So I'm left with a number divided by 2 equals, now 16 plus 8 is going to be 24. All right, so remember, I have divided by 2 now, and the opposite of dividing by 2 is going to be multiplying by 2. I'm going to multiply both sides of that equal sign by 2. Now, these are a little bit funny looking, and this is where a lot of students struggle with the division problems, because when we multiply by 2, what does it look like? And this part right over here on the left with the R looks a little bit funny to us, but that's okay. It's the same thing as saying 2 over 2R. That is the same thing, and the 2 divided by 2 becomes a 1. And we're left with just R equals 24 times 2 is 48. R equals 48. All right, so I'm going to erase that right here because I'm going to go check our work right over here on this side, okay? So I'm going to say 48 divided by 2 minus 8 equals 16. Now, when we're solving it here, we're going back to check it. We want to go back and follow our order of operations. 48 divided by 2 is 24 minus 8 equals 16. We're going to keep simplifying. 24 minus 8 is 16. And this is a true statement. So our answer is correct. Okay. All right, so you're going to get a few to try here. Okay? You're going to get a few to try, and you are going to be able to practice writing these down, okay? Pause your video, and then you can check it and see if you got it right. Okay? Negative 4k plus 9 equals 32. Remember, when you're dividing by negative 4 at the end, don't forget the rules of your integers, okay? This one is just like the last one we did with division and subtraction. Okay, I want you to write these down. You're submitting them on your notes. All right, one more rule here. Remember, to solve inequalities, just like equations with one difference. Okay, remember that difference for inequalities? When you multiply or divide by a negative, you are flipping your inequality. Okay, so flip the inequality. When you multiply or divide by a negative. Okay. All right, that is your rule. And when you multiply or divide by a negative, you flip that inequality. You already know this. Okay, so here are our inequality symbols. All right, we're going to solve these the same way. Okay. Oh, no, go back here. Sorry. There we go. All right, so same thing. Subtract 10. Subtract 10. These are the same ones. These are the same ones we had. Nope. Okay. So I'm left with those go away. I'm left 0. So 3k is less than or equal to 22 minus 10 is 12. So I divide by 3. Divide by 3. Okay, I'm left with k is less than or equal to 4. So what I'm going to do is check it here. 10 plus 3. It says less than or equal to 4. So I'm going to pick a number that's less than or equal to 4. I'm going to say 3. 3 is less than 4. So 3 plus 3 is 9. 10 plus 9, is that less than or equal to 22? Yes, it is. You could check a few more. So I'm going to say it's less than or equal to. So I'm going to put a 4 here and going left. Now, because it has that equal to, it means I color that circle in, okay? All right, I want you to try these next two. Pause your video and write them down, okay? All right, and the last thing here, okay, this is your exit ticket. I want you to determine if this can be a solution, okay? Take your 5. Oh, sorry. You're going to take your 5. Substitute it in there for x and see, is 5 that answer? Take your 4. Tell me, is 4 a possible solution for this, okay? All right, and then you're done. So make sure you put that in your notes and submit it wherever you're supposed to, okay? Thanks, Rams.